When we're passing the guard, especially with the knee cut pass, but with lots of other types of passing too, I want to do two major things. I want to keep them flat so I can pin them and they can't move effectively. And I want to control the space by the hip that's closest to me so that they can't get their knee in to do a classic knee elbow escape. There are a lot of ways that we do this, particularly with knee cutting. What our opponent often tries to do is get an underhook. If they get an underhook, not only can they stay on their side and start to move and escape effectively, but they can come out and take the back. Oftentimes they can do sweeps and end up on top. So we're going to talk about how to address the underhook when we're passing the guard. Like everything, there's usually an early defense, a late defense, and an oh-no defense. So let's go through each of those. If John's on his butt playing open guard, and I'm trying to pass, right, and I get to my passing position, my early defenses, prevention, it's easier to stay out of trouble than it is to get out of trouble. So I like to keep my elbow nice and close, my hand on John's hip, so if he tries to get the underhook, it's very difficult for him, right? Additionally, if he does get the underhook, particularly when it's shallow, I can just pummel, right? We can do our classic pummel fight. I'm going to complete the knee cut pass just to show one other really important thing, because to keep them flat when we knee cut, underhook helps keeping them flat, right? Because I can flatten them with this. I like to bring my head to the near side, the side closest to me, and grab his arm so that as I pass, I can keep him flat with this. I can keep him flat by using my head to turn his head, and I can keep him flat with this overhook, lifting it up into my armpit. So like, I'm going to give up everything except this. John, get on your side. Super hard, right? John, get on your side. Right? So if we can turn his head like this, or keep this, or keep this, usually if your opponent has the same kind of physical attributes as you, any one of those three is going to be good to keep them flat and keep them from getting on their side. But jiu-jitsu is all about cheating. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So we want all three of those things. But again, if John gets this underhook, John, just do what I want you to do with the underhook, right? Like he can come out on my back. If I, even exactly, right? The best thing that happens for me there is I give up and I go to my butt and I'm going through a really powerful passing position to maybe he's on my back or maybe he just uses that to sweep and pass. So we need to stop that underhook. So early defense. Always mindful of returning the elbow to the hip bone, just so we don't open space for him to get that underhook. If he does get the underhook, we can always pummel, right? Then use our other strategies, grabbing for the wrist, turning the head to flatten. But life ain't perfect, right? And so sometimes, either because I made a mistake or John did something awesome, John gets his underhook nice and deep. And now I don't have the space to pummel, and if I try, he's going to be able to come up. So there's two things that I like to do here. And these work both gi and no gi, but in the gi I'm going to put my thumb in his collar, always. I'm going to put my thumb in his collar, and I'm going to back step. I grab his ankle, shelve his knee by bringing my knee under, and I sit. Now those of you that enjoy foot locking will recognize this as a position we like to call the saddle. Other people have other names for it. But here, we've got a position where we can attack his legs, or we can come back up and start to pass. So if he gets a deep underhook, that's a thing that I like to do. Let's do that from a different angle, with John's feet towards me, and John and me. So we're here, right? If I could stop him from getting a deep underhook, I would, but if he gets it, in the gi, we can put the thumb in the collar so we can kind of stiff arm, which we'll also do for the next technique. No gi, you can either control the head with a headlock, or my preference, I put my middle finger in his armpit here. You can post your hand if you need to, and I back step, a detail that I think makes a lot of sense. You notice I don't back step to my hip right away. I back step and then I bring my knee in tight while I'm in a little squat. The reason that I do that is, John, I want you to come up. If I just like back step and go to my butt, right, there's a really good chance John beats me to the top. So I don't want to do that. Instead, it's more like a scissor motion where I back step, put my knee in here. Lots of really good leg lockers do this. Before I sit back, I'm going to collect his leg because I don't want him to be able to step on the mat and try to come up. I do a little hook on the other side of his hip, and people, there are a lot of different ways to control the saddle. We can go into that at another time. But that gets you into a powerful attacking position. If you're not a leg locker, or you're just like, I need to pass and I just want to stay on top, there's another thing that I like to do, and we'll do this. Let's have your feet towards me. Similar concept, we're going to go the same direction, but our grips are going to be slightly different, and we're going to use this to pass. So remember, the two things I'm looking for when I do this pass. I want him to stay flat, and I want to occupy this space. I'm just going to complete the knee cut. If I do that, I'm going to drop my knee into that space. Rewind his hips, very difficult for him to do anything effectively. So that's the ideal. So if I'm passing this way, this is the hip I need to control. That's important because when he gets his deep underhook, we're going to pass just to the other side using a different kind of pass. So we get here, maybe I get a little over aggressive, or John does a really good job here. In the gi, hand comes to the collar, no gi, middle finger in the armpit. This time, instead of trying to collect the ankle, I'm going to grab this gi pant. And now I am going to back step to my hip. And as I back step to my hip, I'm rotating my right hip down and back stepping all the way with my left foot, and my left foot's going to stay on the mat. And now, if John tries to get up, it's very difficult because he can't put this foot on the mat. I've got this grip. No gi, right? We would be hugging his head, trying to stop him from coming up like this, and maybe underhooking this leg. If I want to, I can also do this kind of thing to stop him from coming up into me. But it's a nice, stable position. So remember, when we were passing in this way, we wanted to control this hip. Now we need to control this hip. So I keep this grip, and sometimes they try to keep their knees pinched. It doesn't really matter. All we're going to try to do is step on the mat and shrink until this knee drops to the hip. Try and get on top. I never leave this space unoccupied, right? So this knee drops to it, and when I'm ready to switch, then this knee drops to it. I always want to stay chest to chest so I can pin in. Let's do it one more time. We'll switch sides. So again, we don't really want to be in this position, right? Life is much simpler if you stay out of trouble than you get into trouble. So always try to control those three items. His far side underhook, near side overhook, and make his head turn the opposite direction so he can't ever get on his side. If he does get the underhook, right, don't go forward, pummel, and reset. But if he does get the underhook, like maybe your training partners get good. If so, good, that's a credit to you and them. Thumb in, stiff arm, grab the knee fabric, back step, right? And now your buddy's not going to be able to put this foot on the mat, or if he does, very easy to take your leg out. If they try and keep your foot stuck there, all we're thinking about is getting this knee to his hip bone. So step on the mat, and now, once my knee comes out, this knee replaces, I go chest to chest, and pass. It's easier to stay out of trouble than it is to get out of trouble. So it's very valuable to do specific training for this with your trusted training partners. So when you're serious about a roll, you get everything, they get nothing. Don't try to let them get the underhook. But if you're having a tough time, it's really a good idea for specific training to have the bottom person start with the underhook, and you can either re-pummel, you can back step to the saddle, or you can do this back step pass.